Perfect. Okay. We're looking at the chapter called as TDS and TCS. The TDS and TDS chapter comes and says that TDS means tax deducted at source. TCS means tax collected at source. TDS comes and says that whenever you make a payment to someone, you deduct something called as tax before you make the final payment to him. TCS comes and says that before you pay money to someone, you pay extra money to someone in the form of TCS. That is the difference. That is the difference. In the form of TDS, the payer is going to deduct. In the TCS, the collector is going to collect more. Yes, in TDS, deductor is going to deduct more. In TCS, collector is going to collect more. That is what the difference is. That is what the difference is. Rahul, why am I doing this TDS TCS chapter? Because the section is coming and telling you to do. Rahul, what happens if I don't do it? You will have a disallowance under PGBP at the rate of 30% for residents, 100% for non-resident. That is what it is. That is what it is. Before you start the chapter, there are some golden rules to follow. Golden rule number 1 comes and says that TDS should be done on payment or credit, whichever is earlier. But for some cases, they come and say you can do it on payment only, like salary cases, dividend cases, cash withdrawal cases, casual income cases, any kind of government related cases, compulsory acquisition, 194LA, all those cases. Yes, all these cases you will do only on payment basis. You will not do it on deduction basis. You will not do it on credit basis. You will not do it on credit basis. Then they're coming and saying that best whenever you are making a payment, it should happen at the flat rate which I give you. Should happen at the flat rate which I give you, which means I tell you 1%, it is 1%, no second thought. But yes, if you are going to make the payment to a salaried person, or you are going to make a payment to a non-resident person, then in that case you have to also include surcharge and cess. So any question you see where you have a non-resident coming in or you have a salaried person coming in, mandatory surcharge, mandatory cess to be levied. Any other person, flat rate concept. Any other person, flat rate concept. Rahul, is TDS applicable for everyone? No. TDS is only applicable in case you are an individual or an HUF whose turnover in the last preceding previous year. Which means for your exam it is 22-23, which means you have to check for 21-22. In 21-22, if the turnover goes more than 1 crore for business, 50 lakhs for profession, then in that case you are liable for TDS, but this is only for individual and HUF. If you are any other person like company, firm and etc., mandatory TDS. If you are an individual or an HUF who's not covered into this 1 crore or 50 lakhs condition, hijacker is not applicable for you. What is hijacker, Rahul? H is for commission, I is for rent, J is for professional, A is for interest, C is for contract, R is for the new amendment of business benefits or perquisites. HIJACR. Not applicable to you. Balance everything still applies. Then I'm coming and saying that, Rahul, if you have a TDS, you have to do TDS whether it is for personal purpose or commercial purpose. But for 2 sections, it is only for commercial purpose, which is your C and your J. C is for contract, J is for professionals. Why, Rahul, it is so? Because these two are getting covered under 194M. It is getting covered under 194M. Then I'm coming and saying that, Rahul, whenever you're trying to deduct TDS, I will give you a certain threshold number, and the threshold number keela in the no TDS. And the threshold number mala in the ellathukme TDS. Threshold keela in the no TDS, threshold mala in the ellathukme TDS. But there are some sections where I'm coming and saying, no, not required. You have to do TDS only on the exceeding amount. 2 sections, which is 194N cash withdrawal, 194Q purchase of goods. In these 2 cases, limit ka mala the TDS varo, limit ka keela TDS varad. Yes or no? Yes. Then I'm coming and saying that, Rahul, whenever you have to deduct TDS, you ask the other person to give you your PAN number. If he gives you your PAN number, if he gives you his PAN number, then no problem, you can do the normal rate. If he does not give you the PAN number, you have to do the actual rate or 20%, whichever is higher. This 20% has become 5% in case you are an e-commerce operator, which is 194O, or if you are into purchase of goods, which is 194Q. Rahul, this is also not happening. Now a new provision which has come, which comes and says that if you have to file a return, who has to file a return? The person has to file a return. If the other person has filed his return for the last assessment year on time, for what? This is an amendment for the current year. You have to file the return of the latest assessment year on time, and the return in that should have been more than 50,000. Return TDS should have been more than 50,000, which means if the latest return which you filed is not filed on time, and I find the TDS in that is more than 50,000, I will come and say that the rate will now become twice the rate or 5%, whichever is higher. Let me repeat this once again quickly. I am coming and saying that the person to whom you are making the payment should have filed the return of his latest year on time. If he has not done, and I find out that his TDS is more than 50,000 rupees, I will now deduct TDS for him at twice the rate or 5%, whichever is higher. Rahul, I find out that the person is not giving me PAN also, he is not giving me return also. What to do? In that case, whichever is highest of all the two. Whichever is highest of all the two. If twice is higher, twice, 5 is higher, 5, 20 is higher, 20. All the three will come in. All the three will come in. This is what the section comes and says. With me till here? These are the golden rules. Now moving to the sections, the first one is 192. You don't have to read the 192 from exam perspective. Just know that if it is a salaried employee, you have to deduct TDS at rates in force. Question may come and tell you that if you have some salary employee, you have to verify certain data. You have to verify certain data. Think your head and tell what is the data to be verified. If it is HRA, you will verify rent, place, rent agreement, landlord PAN, etc. etc. Yes, abdi in a scenarios irukum, you understand logically what items will you require from a person to verify that he is giving the deductions or not. Adu pota answer vandrum. Adu pota answer vandrum. At the same time, please understand that the employer also may have 115 BSc. I'm sorry, employee may also have 115 BSc. If he opts for 115 BSc, you have to do as per 115 BSc. If he does not opt for 115 BSc, you will do as per normal. You'll have to do as per normal. When you are asking him for declarations, you have to ask for every kind of deductions and declarations. If he gives it to you, you consider. If he does not give, ignore it. If he is giving you losses, you can only consider losses from HP. You cannot consider any other losses because salary against a HP madada panamudio. Salary against a HP madada panamudio. So only consider your HP losses. Any other losses can be ignored. If he gives you any income, you can consider all those incomes. If he gives you an income, you can consider all those incomes. Yes or no? Yes. The next section is at 192A. Next section is 192A, which comes and says withdrawal of PF. Withdrawal of PF. They are coming and saying, boss, in the PF we learned that if you withdraw within 5 years, it becomes taxable. So I am coming and saying that if the person has withdrawn within 5 years and is not falling within the 3 criteria, medical health, company shutdown, he left the company. If it does not fall in any of these 3 scenarios, you have to now deduct. Who will deduct? PF authorities will deduct at the rate of 10% if the threshold goes 50,000. If the threshold goes 50,000, inga exacta 50,000 indalo TDS varum. Exacta 50,000 indalo TDS varum. Assuming the person does not furnish his PAN number to the PF authorities will do it at MMR. What are MMR? MMR is maximum marginal rate, which in income tax is 30 plus 37 plus 4. 30 plus 37 plus 4. Highest tax rate, highest surcharge rate, highest cess rate. 30, 37 and 4, which will become 42.744. 42.744. Yes or no? Yes. Next is coming 193. 193 comes and says that if you have any kind of interest on securities, TDS is at the rate of 10%. In exam, if you see some weird securities, 10% gold bonds, 6% gold bonds, in the gold bond, national defense bonds, no TDS. Yes. Then you have 194A. You have 194A. 194A comes and says that if you have an interest from a deposit, TDS rate will be at the rate of 10%. TDS will not apply in case the bank deposit interest is not more than 40,000 for a normal person and 50,000 for a resident senior citizen. 5,000 it is from a company. 5,000 if it is from a company. Now when you are looking at this 40,000, 50,000 and 5,000, the rules come and say that if the bank has a CBS, core banking solutions, if the bank has a CBS core banking solutions, you have to look at this 40,000 limit for the whole of the bank. If the bank does not have a CBS, you have to look at per branch. You have to look at it per branch. This is what the rules come and say. At the same time, some exceptions are given to you. The exceptions come and say that you do not have to deduct TDS if it is an interest from a firm to a partner, partner to a firm, interest on income tax refund, interest on registrar general, whatever nonsense. Whatever nonsense. In this 194A, you just have to remember about the bank 40,000, 50,000. 40,000 is for CBS whole bank, non-CBS per branch. That is what is the idea. Clear? Yes. Then you have something called as 194B and 194BB. 194B and BB is your winnings. Winnings is coming and saying that you have a TDS at the rate of 30% if the winnings are more than 10,000. If the winnings are more than 10,000. Please be extremely careful in these kind of questions. If the question comes and says that there is a winnings, the person would have already deducted TDS. Then the question will come and ask you, should you pay advance tax? What will you do is you will come and compute the whole tax including cess, but the TDS will be only given without the cess. So therefore, you will check whether the surcharge and the cess is going beyond 10,000. If it is going beyond 10,000, then advance tax will apply. If it is going less than 10,000, advance tax will not apply. Yes or no? Because TDS is only going to be deducted on the tax part, which means they have not deducted TDS on surcharge and cess. So it is your responsibility to pay that in the form of advance tax. If it is more than 10,000, advance tax applicable. Less than 10,000, advance tax not applicable. Yes or no? Yes. MCQ question, keep in mind. Yes. After 194BB and B comes 194C, which comes and talks about contract payments. This is a part of your hijacker, the first hijacker, where they are coming and saying that if any contract payments are happening, TDS will happen at the rate of 1% in case the other person is an individual or HUF, and 2% in case the other person is a any other scenario. When will it happen? It will happen in case the individual payment is more than 30,000 or the total year payment is more than 1 lakh. Total year payment is more than 1 lakh. This is what the criteria are for 194C. Now, what is 194C? They're coming and saying that this 194C applies on a contract of work like advertisement and contract labor, subcontracting and all those things. Yes, all those things will be contract of work. When it comes to contract of job work, you are only going to levy TDS on the income part of the job worker. You will not levy TDS on the purchase part because you only gave him the raw materials. Yes or no? Yes. So if you are giving the raw materials, adukku mela TDS varadu. Whatever is his service component, adukku mela TDS varum. But at the same time, job work will only be covered under 194C, provided that you are giving the raw materials to him. What are you doing? You are giving the raw materials to him. If you do not give the raw materials to him, then it is not 194C, it is 194Q. Okay. So condition to job work is that you have to give him the raw materials. And when I say you, it is you or your relatives. Relatives here is PGBP relatives. If you or your relatives give him the raw materials, then in that case TDS will be under 194C. If not, it will be under 194Q. Yes or no? Yes. This is your C. After C comes 194D. D not relevant for exam. DA is life insurance proceeds. Life insurance proceeds are coming and saying that, boss, if at all someone is going to get life insurance proceeds, first of all come and tell me whether the life insurance proceeds is taxable or not taxable. How do you check, Rahul, it's taxable or not taxable? On the 80C line, you can 10, 20 and 15. If the premium goes beyond 10, beyond 15, beyond 20, premium policy is taxable. If it is less than 10, less than 15, less than 20, policy is not taxable. If it is taxable, come and tell me what is the amount you received. If I find out that the amount which you received is 1 lakh or more, TDS will apply. If I find out that the amount is 1 lakh or more, TDS will apply. Rahul, in this case, TDS will apply on what? TDS will only apply on the income part. Please understand, 1 lakh is the amount received, but TDS is only on the income. So which means you will have to take the total proceeds received minus the premium paid. That will become your income. Adukku mela TDS is 5%. For those who don't understand this properly, ICA has a question, a very good question. Please do solve it at your end. It will be a very good question. You'll understand things better. Okay. But please understand the number of threshold is for the amount received, but the TDS will only happen on the income element. After DA comes E. E is the first non-resident case in our scenario, where I'm coming and telling that, boss, if you are a non-resident sports person, non-resident entertainer or non-resident sports organization, in that case TDS will levy on you at the rate of 20 plus surcharge plus S. 20 plus surcharge plus S. If surcharge is not there, then just S, it will become 20.8, but 20 plus surcharge plus S. On what incomes will it be levied, Rahul? If you are a sports person, then it is on your sports games. If you have done any contribution to a news article, or if you have done some advertisements. If you are an entertainer, then it will be levied on your entertainment income. If you are a sports organization, it will be levied on your guarantee fees. No threshold given to you. Every single rupee is taxable. This is what is 194E. Yes. After E comes F. F is not there for exam. Double E is ignored. G is lottery commission ignored. H is your commission. Whenever you read the word commission, whether it is D, whether it is G, or whether it is H, it doesn't matter. All the rates are 15,000. All the rates are 5%. Threshold is 15,000. Rate is 5%, threshold is 15,000. Rahul, how do you decide whether it's a commission or not? Check whether it's a principal agent relationship. If there is a principal agent relationship, it is commission. If not, it is C or J. Yes. Next, 194I. I comes and says you are rent payments. In rent payments, they are coming and saying the overall rent payment to the person should not exceed more than 2,40,000. If it exceeds more than 2,40,000, everything is liable for TDS. How do you check this, Rahul? This is a hijacker case, so individual HUF should have satisfied the limits. Payment should happen for rent. TDS rate is given in terms of what you are taking. If you are taking any kind of plant and machinery or equipment, TDS rate is 2%. If you are taking anything else, it is 10%. Rahul, this 2,40,000 has to be checked for both together. If you have taken from a single person itself, land also and computer also, 2,40,000 will be checked on everything. If the threshold exceeds, the computer will be 2% TDS, the land will be 10% TDS. This is what the simple criteria for 194I. 194I. Rahul, if I'm not covered under 194I, I'm moving to 194IB. I'm moving to 194IB. 194IB comes and says that I am an individual or an HUF who's not covered under 194I, but I've taken a house on rent. I've taken a house on rent. Income tax comes and says if you have taken a house on rent and if you're planning to pay more than 50,000 per month as rent, how much? 50,000 per month as rent. In that case, you are liable to pay TDS at the rate of 5%. You're liable to pay TDS at the rate of 5%. But this is 50,000 per month basis. 50,000 per month basis. I don't care how many months you stayed. I don't care how many months you stayed. At the same time, since it's an individual or HF, the provisions come and say that you don't have to deduct TDS right away. You can deduct TDS from the last payment. What payment? Last payment. In the Varshatoda last payment, whichever you make, adil 5% put vechiko. If it is found out that the last payment is not sufficient for you to cover your TDS, whatever is there, fully deposit as TDS, balance will be left off. Balance will be left off, not required to pay. Not required to pay. In simple words, if the last month's payment is 10,000 rupees, but you find out that the total TDS is coming as 20,000 rupees, you deposit 10,000 as TDS to the government, government will let you go. Government will let you go. It will not ask you for the balance 10,000. It will not ask you for the balance 10,000. Yes or no? Yes or no? This is your 194IB. If you are not into 194IB, you have something called a 194IA. 194IA basically comes and says that you have transferred any kind of immovable property. What have you done? You've transferred immovable property. Income tax comes and says that if you plan to transfer a immovable property which is taxable under capital gains, you have to pay TDS at the rate of 1%. TDS at the rate of 1%. If the threshold limit goes beyond 50 lakhs, but here is the amendment for the current year. The 1% which you have, or the threshold of 50 lakhs which you have, is not on the actual consideration. It is the actual consideration of stamp duty value, whichever is higher. Whichever is higher. So if the actual consideration of stamp duty value, whichever is higher, is more than 50 lakhs, TDS will happen at the rate of 1% on whichever is higher. Whichever is higher. This is a one very stupid section which has been introduced because 110% has not been given as a criteria. Okay, so it may so happen that your normal capital gains, you are going to pay tax only on the actual consideration because SDV is less than 110%, but inge portha varaikum you have to deduct 1% on the higher amount. You have to deduct 1% on the higher amount. Just be that in mind. Yes. Now, whenever you are deducting TDS, it is including all components of transfer. Including all components of transfer. If you have made the payment for parking charges, water charges, electricity charges, maintenance charges, gym charges, membership charges, include everything and then deduct TDS. Include everything and then deduct TDS. Yes or no? Yes. So I done, IA done, IB done. After I comes J. After I comes J, important section from exam perspective, which is talking about professional payments. Income tax comes and says this is a part of your hijacker. In a part of hijacker, this section covers 4 kinds of payments: fees for professional, fees for technical, royalty payments, and director payments. Royalty payments and director payments. These are covered under 194J. Income tax comes and says for all these 4 items, limit is 30,000 each. Limit is 30,000 each, which means 30,000 for fees for technical separately, 30,000 for fees for professional separately, 30,000 for royalty separately, 30,000 for no limit for director fees. No limit for director fees. If you are planning to deduct TDS, TDS will happen at the rate of 2% for technical, 10% for professional, 10% for royalty, and 10% for director. 10% for director, but here is where 2 exceptions are given to you. One exception comes and says if you are making a payment to call center, then it is 2%. If you are making payment for cinematographic films, then it is 2%. Yes, so let me repeat it again. It is fees for technical 2%, fees for professional 10%, royalty 10%, and director sitting fees 10%, call center fees 2%, cinematographic films 2%. This is what the criteria are. Please understand the only thing important in this section is that 30,000 is per head. 30,000 is per head. It is not for all the heads together. It is 30,000 per head. Yes. After J comes K. K, I think we have discussed in dividends chapter. Mutual funds or interest is liable for a TDS at the rate of 10%. TDS at the rate of 10%. That is happening on payment or credit, whichever is earlier. After K comes L. L is now not there, which is LA. What is L? It is LA. LA comes and talks about compulsory acquisition. They are coming and saying if government is planning to compulsorily acquire your property, they have given a threshold of 2.5 lakhs. If up to 2.5 lakhs is there, then no TDS will come. After 2.5 lakhs, government will have to deduct TDS at the rate of 10%. Government will have to deduct TDS at the rate of 10%. Rahul, if at all this section is there and 194IA is there, which one to choose? LA should choose. LA should choose. If the government is planning to withdraw your money, transfer will not happen as per 194A. It will happen as per 194LA. It will not happen as per 194IA, it will happen as per 194LA. It is 10% on a threshold exceeding 2.5 lakhs. Yes. After LA comes M. After LA comes M. This section is basically coming and saying, boss, you are not covered under C. You are not covered under H. You're not covered under J because you have not satisfied the limits. What limits? The 1 crore and 50 lakh limits. The 1 crore and 50 lakh limits. Or if I find out that in C and J you're making personal payments. Or if I find out that you're making C and J personal payments, then the section is coming and saying you can deduct TDS at the rate of 5% on a threshold of 50 lakhs. On a threshold of 50 lakhs, which means 50 lakhs keel in the no TDS, 50 lakhs kamala pocha, ellathukkume 5%. Ellathukkume 5%. Understand the section will only apply in case the individual or HF is not satisfying the tax audit conditions, or the individual or HF is making a personal payments. This was your 194M. After 194M comes 194N. 194N basically comes and says that if you are planning to withdraw cash from a bank, what are you planning to do? Withdraw cash from a bank. If you're planning to withdraw cash from a bank, you have to deduct TDS at the rate of 2% on a payment more than 1 crore. On a payment more than 1 crore. Please understand, this is the first section where 1 crore variko no TDS, 1 crore kamala 2%. 1 crore variko no TDS, 1 crore kamala 2%. So they are coming and saying, boss, 2 crores, 1 crore kamala, you have to deduct TDS at the rate of 2%. Who will deduct? Bank will deduct. Bank will deduct the TDS. Yes. Now this TDS which is being deposited for you is not an income for you. It's not an income for you. You can use this TDS for claiming against your other taxes. Claiming against your other taxes. But if I find out that you are an assessee who has not filed your return for the last 3 years on time, please understand it is for all the last 3 years, which means 1 year also you filed on time, no problem. 1 year also you have filed on time, no problem. But in the last all 3 years you have not filed a return on time, the threshold will now become 20 lakhs. The threshold will now become 20 lakhs, which means 0 to 20 lakhs no TDS, 20 lakhs to 1 crore 2%, 1 crore kamala 5%. 1 crore kamala 5%. Repeat it again, 0 to 20 lakhs no TDS, 20 lakhs to 1 crore 2%, 1 crore kamala 5%. 1 crore kamala 5%. Yes, nothing else to be remembered in this section, nothing else is important. After N comes O. After N comes O. This O is basically coming and saying that you are an e-commerce operator. Income tax is coming and saying that, boss, if you are an e-commerce operator who is taking goods from an Indian person, and selling this goods to any person, when you collect the money from this customer and give it to the seller, you have to deduct TDS at the rate of 1%. You have to deduct TDS at the rate of 1%. Rahul, the customer is planning to directly send the money to the seller. No problem. Still, I have to deduct 1%. How to do, Rahul? You take it away from his payments. That is how you have to do it, but you have to do it. Mandatory condition. In exam, the only 2 questions which will come is, they'll come and say, boss, the seller has directly made the payment to the customer. What to do? You have to still deduct TDS. Who are you? You are the e-commerce operator. Second, they'll come and say, no, the payment has come to me, then I have given it to him. Then in that case, you will come and say, boss, whatever came to me, in that 1% I'll deduct, and then I'll give him the balance. This section is an overriding section, which means I don't care even if I'm paying professional payments or contract payments or anything. As long as it is happening from e-commerce operator section, it has to happen as per 194O. I will not look at C, I will not look at J, I will not look at M, nothing I will look at. I will only look at O. This section also comes and clarifies that TDS will not apply in case the seller is an individual. Who is the seller? Individual. And the seller is not sold more than 5 lakhs worth of goods from my e-commerce operator, which means I have to at least make a business of 5 lakhs. with that seller. If I'm making a business of 5 lakhs from the seller, I will deduct TDS at the rate of 1% on all his payments. If he's not doing at least 5 lakhs worth of sales from my thing, then I don't care about him. He can go and get lost and do whatever he wants. Okay. Yes. This is your 194. O. After O comes P. P is basically coming and saying that you are a resident super senior citizen. Who are you? Resident super senior citizen. Now the difference in resident super senior citizen is, here it is not 80, it is 75. It is 75. I find out that you are a 75 years or old senior citizen who does not have any income other than pension income and interest income. Income tax is coming and saying that, boss, if I find out that you have pension income and interest income, the bank in which you keep the pension, can deduct TDS on your behalf. Whatever is the money you are liable to pay, bank will compute the money, go and deposit to the government. If the bank takes the headache for you, then you don't have to file a return. So bank will come and automatically find out the TDS for you. Bank will go and deposit the TDS for you, and bank will tell you that he has deposited TDS, in which case you don't have to file a return. Rahul, what is the rate to use? There is no rate. Slab rates is what will go. which means the bank will reach out to the person and come and say, tell me what is your incomes, tell me what is your deductions, tell me what is your rebate, tell me what is your exemptions, tell me everything, declare everything to me. I will compute your income tax for you. I will compute the tax payable for you. I will take the whole tax payable. I will deposit it as TDS and I will tell you the certificate. You take the certificate, don't file a return, get lost and go home. But this section will not apply in case I am having 2 or more banks. Which means if I have more than one bank, then in that case the section will not apply. The respective sections will take care of itself. The respective sections will take care of itself. Yes or yes?
Yes.
Yes. After P comes Q. After P comes Q. This basically section comes and says purchase of goods. Purchase of goods. This section is basically coming and saying that boss, if someone is planning to purchase goods from you, and you are selling him goods more than 50 lakhs, before making the payment, deduct TDS at the rate of 0.1% on above 50 lakhs. How much? 0.1% above 50 lakhs is what the criteria is. But yes, this will not apply in case the deductor does not have a turnover more than 10 crores in the preceding previous year. If the deductor has a turnover more than 10 crores in the preceding previous year, then only he will follow the section. If not, he will not follow the section. If he is going to follow the section, he has to do TDS at the rate of 0.1% on income above 50 lakhs. Which means the payment above 50 lakhs. Yes or no? In this section, they also come and clarify that boss, in case the other person does not have a PAN number. It does not matter. Do not deduct TDS at 20%. Deduct it at 5%. Exception given to you. Yes or no? After Q becomes PQR. The most important section from this science exam perspective is called as 194R. Talks about your business benefits or business perquisites. This section is basically coming and saying that boss, if you are planning to give someone a business benefit or a business perquisite, what? Business benefit or business perquisite, before you end up giving this business benefit or business perquisite to him, you are now liable to deduct TDS at the rate of 10%. But the threshold is given of 20,000 rupees, which means if the benefit is going to go above 20,000, TDS is happening on the whole payment. If the benefit is going to go less than 20,000, TDS will not happen on any payment. Rahul, how to value this benefit? They're simply coming and saying that boss, value of the benefit is FMV. If you are manufacturing it in-house, then it is your own cost. Okay, so if you're going to manufacture it in-house, it is your own cost. If you're going to buy it from outside, then it's the price at which you bought it. Rahul, I'm going to give him the payment in kind. Income tax is saying I don't care. If you're going to make him the payment in kind, collect the money, then give him the kind. Or you gross it up and you pay him. Which means you give him extra benefit. The benefit of you depositing tax on his behalf. You can gross it up and also do it, or you can ask him to pay the TDS to you first before you discharge this payment. The same provision is there in winnings also. Where if you are going to discharge someone winnings in kind, you have to collect the money from him, then only discharge it in winnings. Yes or no? One more option I'm coming and telling you. The option is I can get a declaration from the other person. What can I do? I can get a declaration from the other person, where if he comes and declares to me saying, no Rahul, I will take the benefit, I will deposit in my return and I will pay advance tax on this. I will take the benefit, I will put it in my return and I will pay advance tax on it. Then in that case also I don't have to deduct TDS. Because then he is anyway paying the tax, I don't have to pay it once again. Yes or no? Yes. Now some examples from your exam perspective for the current attempt. They are coming and saying that boss, TDS will happen on the amount excluding GST. If there is a GST component, ignore the GST component. Then they're coming and saying, boss, if you're going to have a social media influencer, what are you having? A social media influencer. Then they're coming and saying, if you give the item to the social media influencer and the social media influencer gives it back to you later on, TDS will not apply. But if you give the item to the social media influencer and he keeps the item, then TDS will apply. Then they're coming and saying, boss, if you're going for a business conference, the date on which the business conference starts till the date on which the business conference ends, no TDS. If someone decides to come before that date or stay after that date, for that period, TDS. Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes. Anything else is there in this question? If you are in UN and all, not applicable. If you have any kind of discount given, any kind of sale discount, cash discount, rebates and all given, no TDS. Then they're coming and saying any kind of one-time loan settlement or waiver of loans from bank not required. Social media influencers we discussed, business conference we discussed, and one more item was there. Out-of-pocket expenses if they are already a part of 194C and 194J. If you are going to have an out-of-pocket expenses which anyway C and J will take care of, you don't come into middle. You don't come into middle. This is what the section is. But the most important part in the section is the last table. Understand that this section is only applicable from 1st July. From 1st July, which means any benefit which you gave before 1st July should be considered for the purpose of 20,000 limit. Should be considered for the purpose of 20,000 limit, but should not be considered for the purpose of TDS. Should not be considered for the purpose of TDS. Any benefit you give before 1st July, you will ignore for the purpose of computing the TDS, but you will consider him as a part of 20,000. Any benefit which you give after 1st July, you will check for the limit also, you will check for the TDS also. You will check for the TDS also. Just be careful about this part of the adjustment. Yes? Yes, great. This marks the end of what is called as your TDS. In TDS, you have to also understand two things. The due date for filing depositing TDS is 7th of next month. But if it's month of March, then it is 30th April. Then it is 30th of April. Rahul, if I don't deduct TDS on time, what will happen? I will have to levy interest at the rate of 1% per month or part thereof. Rahul, if I deduct TDS but I forgot to deposit it to government, it is 1.5% per month or part thereof. Per month or part thereof. So what will happen is in an exam question, if they come and tell you that boss, they should have deducted TDS in the month of Feb, but they deducted only in the month of April, then Feb, March, April, 1%. Feb, March and April, 1%. Then April or a deposit, you should have paid it in May, but you paid it in August. In which case it will happen May, June, July, April, May, June, July, August. That will be for 1.5%. That will be for 1.5%. Yes, April should also be considered, but ICA does not prefer it, so let's not do it. Let's not do it. It will happen from the due date. It will happen from the due date. This is what your interest computations are looking like. Yes or no? Yes. Yes or no? Yes. Perfect. This is your end of the chapter called as TDS. Coming to the next part of the chapter called as TCS. This part of the chapter of TCS basically comes and says that boss, if you are planning to buy some goods, when you give the money to the person, I also want you to give him an extra money. Which means if you are planning to give him 100 rupees, you now have to give him 110 rupees. Why, Rahul? The other person will keep the 100 rupees with himself. He will give the 10 rupees to the government, which you can claim back tomorrow in the form of TCS. This is what the provisions are coming and saying. Rahul, how does this work? They basically identified some goods. On the goods against the rate kutrukanga and the rate ported TCS varum. And the rate ported TCS varum. Now in this also they are coming and saying it is payment or credit, whichever is earlier. But there it was credit, here it is debit. Because now you are looking from the perspective of the collector. At the same time they are coming and saying that boss, if you do not give a PAN number, the person making the payment, if he does not give a PAN number, the collector will have to collect 2 times the rate or 5%. 2 times the rate or 5%. And if the other person does not file the return on time, it is 2 times the rate and 5% once again. 2 times the rate or 5% once again. Please be extremely careful that the return filing order conditions has been amended in the current year. Last times it was last 2 years, now it is last year. So latest AY mattum paapom, and the latest AY return file pannirukano time, and then you should have not had TDS more than 50,000. If you do not file your return on time and the TDS is gone more than 50,000, then in that case you will have a higher rate of TDS. Most likely for this to come in exam. Coming to the TCS provisions, the TCS provisions come and say there are certain goods where you have to take care of yourself. First item is alcoholic liquor. They are telling 1% TCS. Then Tendu leaves 5% TCS. Timber is 2.5% TCS. Balance every item is 1% TCS. If you are doing a motor vehicle of more than 10 lakhs, again TCS will be at the rate of 1%. Now here understand this 10 lakhs is per vehicle. And the TCS provisions will not apply in case the sale is happening from the manufacturer to dealer. It is not happening from the manufacturer to dealer. This will only apply in case it is happening from the dealer to customer. Rahul, what will happen from manufacturer to dealer? 194Q will apply. At the same time, if the dealer to seller is also not happening more than 10 lakhs, TCS varadu, but 194Q check pannalam. 194Q check pannalam. So please be careful whenever you have a question where there is a goods, you have to also check for 194Q. You have to also check for 194Q. These provisions are basically coming and saying that per vehicle should go more than 10 lakhs. This provision will not apply in case the sales is happening from manufacturer to dealer. Will only apply in case it happens from dealer to customer. Dealer to customer. This is what the simple provisions are. Yes. Then they are coming and saying that boss, if you are taking a loan, I'm sorry, not a loan. If you are going to plan to make a payment outside India, if you are planning to make a payment outside India, income tax is coming and saying that boss, you can only make a payment up to 7 lakhs outside India. You can only make a payment up to 7 lakhs outside India. If you plan to make a payment outside India above 7 lakhs, I will put a TCS on you at the rate of 5%. This TCS will be collected by the dealer which you have who is going to make the payment. The TCS will be collected by the person who is going to make the payment on your behalf. We call him as AD banker. What banker? AD banker. So if you authorized dealers, we call them as authorized dealers. So if you make a payment up to 7 lakhs in 1 year, no problem. If you make a payment more than 7 lakhs in 1 year, it will become 5%. But at the same time, they're coming and saying, boss, forget all this. If you make a payment for tour package, now the tour package should be an overseas tour package. If you're going to make a payment for an overseas tour package, 5% no limit. 5% no limit, 1 rupee also 5% charge. 1 rupee also 5% charge. That is what the provisions are, with certain exceptions given to you. The exception number 1, they are coming and saying, if you have planned to give this loan outside India for the purpose of an educational purpose, the 5% will become 0.5% above 7 lakhs. The 5 will become 0.5 above 7 lakhs. This is what the provisions are. But at any given point of time, overseas tour package, whether you make the payment directly to the tour programmer or you make it through the AD banker, it doesn't matter. It is always 5%, no limits. 5%, no limits. Yes or no? Yes or no? And the last provision for your exams, they are coming and saying that, boss, if you are planning to sell any goods, hey, you have some amendment in the current year. It comes and says no TCS will be applicable in case the TCS is liable, the section is applicable in any other place, or if you have a non-resident who does not have a P in India, meaning the payment is happening to payment is happened by a non-resident. Payment is happened by a non-resident. Foreign all inge vandittu foreign kaga trip kekkrana summa vachu TDS vechadu. Okay, nothing will happen. They will not be liable for TCS. Last provision is your 206C 1H, the copy paste of TDS. The copy paste of TDS under 194Q. Same provisions. The exception is that now the collector will collect. Now the collector will collect at the rate of 0.1% above 50 lakhs, which means any kind of sale of goods happening 0.1% above 50 lakhs, you will be liable for a TCS only if the seller now is having a turnover more than 10 lakhs. So no, seller is having a turnover more than 10 lakhs in the previous year. Rahul, my seller is having more than 10 lakhs, TCS. My buyer is having more than 10 lakhs. Ulta was ulta. Okay. If the seller is having more than 10 lakhs, it is TDS. If the buyer is having more than 10 lakhs, TCS. Rahul, both are having more than 10 lakhs, TDS. Then TDS will apply. TDS is a more superior section. With this marks the end of your TCS.